Forgiveness is a decision, not an emotion. Now, sometimes you might feel that emotion of legitimately forgiving, but ultimately it's a decision, not just an emotion. Because if you forgive when you feel like it only, then what happens when you don't feel like it? Then you won't forgive. So this is a conscious decision we make under the power of the Holy Spirit. And let's talk about some scriptures that show us how to do this. Very practical. Every person needs to be forgiven, and there are people that every single one of us need to forgive. So you can't really get any more practical than that. Now, we're going to be in the Bible, obviously. But I just want to start off and show you from what they call social sciences. You guys know what the social sciences are? Considered a soft science. It's like study of people and how they act and stuff. Well, there's a guy not writing from a believing perspective named Dr. Fred Luskin. And he has a book called Forgive for Good. And can you believe at Stanford they had something called the University Forgiveness Project? It's a real thing, a University Forgiveness Project. Yes, it's Stanford. Stanford elite school, no doubt about that. And they did these studies. I'm not going to get into all the details, but this social scientist, Fred Luskin, basically, after a lot of analysis at the Stanford University Forgiveness Project, touts the emotional and health benefits of forgiveness. Now, granted, this is limited because even though since people who are not Christians are made in the image of God, they can forgive. Without the gospel, there is a difference there, because when we forgive, it should be based upon the gospel. You guys understand? So there's a difference in kind of understanding or application, but nonetheless, we're made in the image of God, so there's some overlap there. And Fred Luskin describes forgiveness as, quote, an extremely beneficial option. Now, does the Christian have an option, though? Not easy to hear, right? But it's not optional. Not easy to hear, I know. Now, for God, it's optional. He didn't have to forgive any one of us. But if you're under his authority, it's not. And Fred Luskin, an unbeliever social scientist, speaks about benefits of forgiveness for the individual even. And ultimately, that's not why we are to do things, but God has designed us in a way that obeying him brings real benefit. He says that people can choose to do this regardless of the offender's response. Now, I'm going to read a quote from him, okay? And then we're going to get into the text here. Quote, forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes the present. I know it's a little Hallmark cardy, but it's still true, so follow. Forgiveness means that even though you are wounded, you choose to hurt and suffer less. Remember, because he's touting benefits of this to the individual. Forgiveness means you become part of the solution. It's not always easy. It's never easy. But this is what we're called to do. Forgiveness is the understanding that hurt is a normal part of life. Younger people especially. Some of you are like, yeah, I had a hard life. You're young and you had a hard life. I get it. Maybe you did, though. I'm not even knocking that. But basically, it's going to get worse. So when I say younger, it's like easier to be idealistic, especially if you're under 25. Now, I think Christians should remain idealistic, for lack of a better word. But you think it's been hard so far and you had some bad things happen, it's just guaranteed it's going to be worse. Because guess what? More people you know and love are going to die. And they're not all going to wait till you're 50. You know, side trail, I'm old enough to remember in 1999 when the Phantom Menace came out. Does anybody know what the Phantom Menace is? What's the Phantom Menace? Star Wars Episode 1, Jake Lloyd with a bad bowl cut. Yippee! That's Anakin. Well, it came out in 1999, I remember, and I had a buddy named Matt Carr, and he was like he rapped. We had a little rap group, and he rapped, and it was weird because he was like from way out in the suburbs. So I kind of, when I first met him, I judged him like, this kid from the suburbs is not going to be able to rap. But he was a drummer, and he had a great sense of rhythm, and this dude could. I was like, oh, I guess he's better than me. So Matt can rap, but he still wore those little farmer hats and stuff like that. This is in Ohio. Anyways, I used to always talk to him about Star Wars stuff. He was the only other person in my little friend circle who really kind of got it. And we would analyze the trailer. You had to record it on VHS and then rewind it. But who's this character with a face tattoo? And I remember we talked about Phantom Menace. And then a year later, 1999 or 2000, 2001-ish, I get a phone call. I'd already moved to Phoenix at this time. Yo, Matt Carr died. What? They were on tour. He felt a brain he felt a hurt in his head, went down, laid down, never woke up. He was 22. He had a brain aneurysm and never woke up. And I remember, what? That was hard, especially for his family, but it's hard for his friends. My point is, he didn't wait till he's old to die. It's only going to get worse, folks. So that's why you need to lock into forgiveness now and have a life of forgiveness. Otherwise, you're going to end up like those old, bitter people you see on the movies and the TV show, right? You don't want to be like those folks. Forgiveness, something you want to lock into now, because you should expect hurt and pain and expect to be a person who lives a pattern of forgiveness. Not because it's easy, because it's right. And guess what? Like vegetables, it's good for you. I'm not joking. It's true. It's true. I know you guys are feeling it. Forgiveness is for you and no one else. Now, this is an unbeliever writing this, right? So it's forgiveness for no one else. I just want to have his full quote here. It's not just for us. But the point is, he's saying it benefits you to forgive regardless of what they do. This is a non-Christian speaking, remember. You can forgive and rejoin a relationship, or forgive and never speak to the person again. Now, this is what he's saying. I'm going to say that part of true forgiveness is setting up at least potential structures for reconciliation. But this is to understand, even the world on a social science level recognizes benefits for you to forgive. Now, why do we forgive? Ultimately, forgiveness is based upon who God is, his character. We have a merciful God. How do we know that? He explains who he is. He tells us who he is. He reveals himself to us. We don't study a tree and say, God must be forgiving. I think we can study a tree and know there's a creator, but we may not know about his character, right? We can know his power. By the way, what I'm saying is in Romans 1. I'm paraphrasing it. Based upon who God is. Well, who is God? Exodus chapter 34, verse 6 to 7 says this, Then Yahweh passed by in front of him and called out, Yahweh, Yahweh, your translation will say Lord, Lord. God, now it's going to describe him, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding, that means lots, gobs, a gang, a grip, abounding in loving kindness and truth, who keeps loving kindness for thousands, who forgives iniquity. What's iniquity? Sin, what'd you say? Lawlessness, sin, those are both good. That's right. God forgives iniquity, transgression, and sin. This is parallelism, saying the same thing different ways with emphasis, with the different words there. Now, if you go on and read the rest of the quote, it still talks about God punishing sin, but it describes how much of a forgiving God he is. Have you ever read stories about the Greek or the Egyptian or maybe the Babylonian or any of the pantheons, any of the deities? What are some gods' names, false gods' names you know or remember? Baal? What do you know about Baal? Anybody know about Baal? What's he like? He is in control of the weather, they say. That's what they thought, by the way. So yeah, he's supposed to be the weather, the storm god. What else do you know about Baal? Or give me another false god. I think he might. I think he has a sister wife. He was Mormon. Just kidding. Ha ha. What other? This is in church. I need to see how many false gods we know here in church today. Any false gods that are established deities. I don't mean someone being like your Corvette. Who you got? Nimrod. Ra. Who's Ra? Sun god. Right. What's he do? You guys don't know what these gods do. You need to understand their functions. He brings the sun up every morning. That's all right. Who's another god? But do you know any of the characters of these gods? Like some actions they did in the stories? What did Poseidon do? You know any Poseidon stories? You got a good Poseidon tale for me? Yes. Trident. Aquaman. Yeah. Why was Zeus a sexual deviant? What did Zeus do that was weird? So Zeus frequently, he said transform. Zeus would frequently morph into a different shape to seduce earthly women. You guys know that? You know, he would switch it up and be like, hey, baby. And he's usually, you know, some guy's wife or something. That's what Zeus did. He's out there, you know, with his Zeus Riz, I suppose. It's kind of messed up, though. Yep. If there was Twitter back then, Zeus would definitely get Me Too'd. You know? Yeah, you got Horus and Osiris. You Aphrodite, yeah. These gods in general, they're good folks. No? They don't use their power for good? Not usually. Usually the men and women in the stories have to fight them or serve them. Their characteristics are basically like people with superpowers. Not so the God of the Bible. He's in control of the weather, but that's not always in control of. He's in control of the sea, but that's not always in control of. Do you guys understand the difference? And he's forgiving, and he's under no obligation to forgive. And yet he punishes righteously. He's not out here sinning with us. He's holding us to a standard, which is perfection and holiness. Do you understand the massive difference? You could see, though, why you might want to get down with one of those other gods, right? Because they're more relatable. I could kind of feel that God. He's kind of like me. Not so. In fact, Yahweh is described as disembodied or unembodied, rather. Not disembodied, unembodied, meaning he doesn't have a physical shape or form. Therefore, you shouldn't make an image of him. There's no image to make. Do you guys understand that? But all the other gods, oh, there's their icon. There's their avatar. This God is radically different, and forgiveness is based upon his character. So just like he forgives, we got to forgive. Leviticus, look, next book over. Leviticus chapter 19. But right in there, you have Leviticus 19:18. It says this, you shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. You know, the Old Testament God is really mean, and the New Testament guy, he's like friendlier, so I like the new one better. You guys ever hear something like that, right? And every now and then you'll meet an atheist who'll say, I like the Old Testament God. That's when God had some hoopsa. You know, he had some, now he's all soft. I meet atheists now and then who kind of mock it that way every now and then. But where does the Bible say first to love your neighbor? Leviticus. That's the Old Testament, isn't it? Based upon a forgiving God. Don't hold a grudge. Now, let's say one of those guys, a Hebrew Israelite who was here today, he'd say, oh, against the sons of your people. This is only for fellow Israelites. Now, first of all, this has been dealt with by Jesus. Remember when they tried to trap him when he said, love your neighbor as yourself, just like this? And he said, who's my neighbor? And he told a story about a Samaritan, a racial half-breed that was hated by the Jews and made him the hero of the story. Jesus dealt with that, didn't he? He said, who's the neighbor in the story? Not only that, Israelites could have neighbors who were not Jews back then because there was proselytization and intermarriage. Ruth the Moabitess, Uriah the Hittite. David didn't love his neighbor as he loved God, all right, there. You understand what I'm saying? You look here and you see that we are supposed to imitate God's behavior. We don't get to act like Zeus. We got to act like Yahweh.